So I videoed John's last ever recording of him doing Imagine. And I showed it to a friend of mine who knew John, Charles Dance. And he started crying. And he said, this is the most beautiful, iconic piece of filmmaking I've ever seen. And so John making me do filming has now, I'm going to delve into the Andy's name list again, John Hurt. Sir John Hurt, the most beautifulest human being I've had the fortune of meeting, because he is so lovely and so generous. And what I loved about John is it took me a while to meet him and arrange a shoot, because at the time, when I first started reaching out to him, he was living in Ireland, up atop of a mountain somewhere, so it was hard to get hold of. Then he moved back to the UK, and eventually we got to meet, and he was born on the exact same day as my dad. Same day, same year, 22nd of January, 1940. So I got this infinity with him that in 1940, on January 22nd, two babies were born. One was being an actor. One was going to have a son who's going to end up photographing. So I become good friends with John. And whenever I shot a project, whenever I did anything, John was the first person I'd go to, because I know he'd say yes. So I'd done this thing with Vivienne Westwood called Save the Arctic. Who's the first person to call? John. I've done the thing for BAFTA. Who's the first person? John. Done something for Elton John. Who's the first person? John. And he's always generous and gifted. Now, the years went by. In the meantime, he'd moved to Norfolk, which was great, because my parents were still living there. And he phoned up and he said, Andy, when are you going to come and see your parents next? Because maybe at the weekend. When you do, love, come around and see me. Let's have a chat. I was okay. So I went around to see him, and he had this lovely house in the middle of nowhere in Norfolk. It's in East Runton. And it's a lovely house. And in his garden, he had this outhouse, but he made it into an art studio. He'd sit there painting and writing and everything. And we sat in there. He poured us a pint of red wine each. And he said, darling, I've got something to tell you. He said, yes, John. He said, I've got cancer. I've been given months to live. I wanted you to know before the press gets hold of it, because I just wanted you to know. And I was quite bereft, because it was almost like, a family figure telling you. And he said to me, you're more than a photographer. I said, what do you mean, John? He went, you're more than just a photographer. I see you. You're more than a photographer. I said, John, I don't understand. Oh, he said, the way you see the world would be amazing in a moving image. Using what you do in the moving image would be magical. Can you be back here next weekend with a camera, a moving image camera? I said, well, I can be, but I've never, he said, come back here and direct me. I want you to direct me next weekend. So we finished our wine, we had a bit of a cry and a hug, and I went back to London. I went to a camera shop and I said, I need to get a camera that can do film. Something I can just press play and stop, and it's okay. And they said, you'll need sound software as well. So you get that's Calumet in London gave me all the highest stuff. And the next weekend, I went back to John, and I thought, directing The Elephant Man, directing Quentin Crisp, directing, all these figures he's made famous at the years. What do I do? And so he let's get set up in the art studio. So he got set up, and I got a green screen set up, and I'd done the lighting I would do for a photograph I'd done for this. And I saw in the corner of his room, there's a priest's robes, the dog collar. And I said, oh, what was that? He said, yes, my father was a priest. And for no reason other to give me more thinking time, I said, John, do you want to put it on? So he said, of course I will. So he dressed up as this priest. And I said, what should I do? How do I want to direct him? I still don't know what to do. He sat down. He went, okay, darling, direct me. And I said, do you know the words of Imagine by John Lennon? Of course I bloody do. And I said, well, how about You're a priest. Speak the words like I'm one of your parishioners. Speak the words as if you're giving me a parable. Imagine there's no heaven. And he did this entire Imagine in one take. And we'd done it. And he said, Senor Gotts, shall we go again? John, you did probably more than I wanted. And he said, let's do it one more time. He said, give me a note. What's a note? Give me an idea. Give me your input. That's called a note in the business. Okay. When you say, get to the line, imagine there's no heaven. You're a priest. Give it a little wry smile. Now, imagine there's no heaven. And I'll keep that. And so he did that once more. And then we, had another drink, said goodbyes. And that was the last time I saw John. And that was the last thing he ever recorded. So I videoed John's last ever recording of him doing Imagine. And I showed it to a friend of mine who knew John, Charles Dance. And he started crying. And he said, this is the most beautiful, iconic piece of filmmaking I've ever seen. And so John making me do filming has now inspired me. My next direction, I'm going to direct something. I'm going to write and direct something. And that's a little burner that John gave me. And so if it wasn't for John, I wouldn't have that little burning desire in the back of my head.
And is that in the public domain, that film?
I showed it only to Anwin, that's John's wife, and I showed it to a few of his friends and his son, Nick. And then I just kept it to me. And then Anwin said one day, people should see this. So I've not known what to do with it. So I put it on YouTube. So it's on YouTube, but I will find something to do with it one day. But what I will do, I don't know, but it's up there.
And will you please share the link with me and with us? Because I just think I just have to go and see it. That's, of all the faces in all the world, John Hurt had the most beautiful line lived in. I mean, what a subject.
And the fact is, his voice is so iconic. And I used to tease him all the time because we used to talk about favourite characters, favourite roles, favourite movies. And I said to him, to me, John, your best role ever was Skeleton Key. And then he his grumpy face, and but I played a man with a stroke and I couldn't speak. I said, exactly, you couldn't speak, so you didn't rely on your voice, you relied on your acting. And so he knew his voice was his money. He knew that. So I'd always tease him that Skeleton Key, where he played a man who couldn't speak, was his best role ever. And so
Liquid Gold was his voice. But also, I'm just so hooked by the Imagine by John Lennon set to John Hurt standing in his father's priest garb. Good grief.